Hi everyone, welcome to Antioch Atelier. Thank you for joining me. My name is Jody and I'm a professional artist and teacher. I have been teaching what I love for over 20 years and I would like to share it with you. Hi there, my name is Jody and I'm going to show you how to paint in the style of Michelangelo Merisi da Caravaggio, the bad boy painter of 16th century Italy. Caravaggio's work was mostly figurative, as is much of mine. However, I will be painting in still life for these demonstrations and will show methods that will help you to achieve the beautiful luminosity that is found in his paintings. This is the first of 3 videos. Each video focuses on a stage of this process. The first is the burnt umber underpainting. The second will be the grisaille, or gray layer in English. And then the third video will be the final application of color in glazes, along with passages of opaque paint. I begin with the underpainting. First, you want to tone your canvas. By the way, we have a short video on this channel that you can watch, and it is called Toning Your Canvas. For brushes, I use filberts and brights. We also have a brush tutorial on our channel. I'm going to start mixing the paint with the solvent. In this case, the solvent is turpenoid. I make the mixture wet, but not too drippy, so I can draw with my brush. I draw and place the paint on the canvas with a filbert brush. I begin by drawing a center line to get the rough gesture of the pear. And then I drew a quick outline with mostly straight marks, often called faceted lines. This makes it easy to build up the volume that I want to describe in this 3-dimensional object that is being painted on a 2-dimensional surface. As I am working, I wipe out some of the paint using a brush with turpenoid to erase the paint. I constantly use this technique of putting on paint loosely and then erasing out and blending and manipulating to refine the shapes. Just as I might draw a gestural line in the center of a figure that is bent or turning. This helps me place the outer edges of the pear properly, as well as reminding me that the pear has volume. Okay, I just checked and realized that my pear is too far to the right of the canvas. So I make a mark to where I want to move it. But then I obliviously wipe it off along with the rest of the paint, but I can see where it's going to be, so I'm not too worried. So I'm starting again, guesstimating where my new mark was. I needed to move the pear a little over to the left, which you can see looking at the black and white grayscale photo above on the right. Once again, I'm putting in basically straight faceted marks for the outer edges, adding my gestural line in the center. Gesture seems like a funny word to use when describing a pear, but I use the word to describe the implied movement of the pear. In figure drawing, we do gesture drawings. The model takes an active pose, for example, with their limbs stretched out or turning around or pushing out towards a wall. While the model is in this pose, they are still, and we describe the implied movement of the model in our drawing or painting. I am now drawing in the couple of thread spools to the right of the pear. I then check the placement of spools with my brush and adjust their shapes. I start adding a few marks that are more rounded. I will be refining the edges by manipulating the paint on a canvas with a filbert brush that has turpenoid on it, and I will move and erase the paint as I go along. I now brush in the form shadows on the pear and spools and place a quick horizontal line to show the front of the table. I work out the placement of the pincushion, a classic little tomato pincushion that we all grew up with, and a little strawberry that hangs on it. For those of you who don't sew, the strawberry is full of emery sand. and you sharpen your needles by sticking them in the strawberry a few times. I apologize that I have no video clip to show this next part, but I am holding the brush up to the still life I am working from. Now I am using my brush to measure the width of the pear's neck, and I'm comparing it to the width of one of the spools. And then I check on my painting, which you can see. Now I measure the width of the belly of the pear, and I compare it to the width of the pincushion. I make the pincushion a little wider, and then begin filling in the form shadow. I use a number 4 sized filbert brush with turpenoid for erasing and moving edges around, as well as refining the lights. I use a number 6 size bright brush to blend the form and cast shadows. I keep the blending brush as dry as I can. I don't put it in any turpenoid or paint, and I wipe it off frequently with a rag or paper towel. The only paint it touches is already on the canvas. By the way, the light source that I am using to light the still life is coming from the right side. This is called the direct light. It's coming from the light source and hits the surfaces of the objects and the table that faces the light source. Shadows that are on the opposite side of the objects are called form shadows, and the shadows cast by those objects onto the table or onto other objects are called, appropriately, cast shadows. Now you might notice a little line that I drew earlier at the bottom of the 2 spools. I am using this line to help me position the spools correctly in relation to each other. I start to refine the pear. I use turpenoid to clean up the main light area, and then with a rag I remove the leftover paint. My objective is to have a burnt umber representation of the entire still life, where the shadows and edges are refined and completed in burnt umber, and that the lights are mostly just the tone of the canvas. I move forward doing more of the drawing and refining. I have added 2 spools to the far left and the one between the pear and the pincushion. I am using a couple of small filberts to draw with and a small, dry, bright brush to blend with. And then I have another little filbert that I'm using for erasing. You may notice that everything is in a slightly different position in the photograph up on the right. I am painting this from life, and the actual still life setup that I am painting from is to the left of me in my studio. I inadvertently shot the photograph very slightly to one side of where I'm working, maybe an inch. So now, although my painting looks a little different, I think we'll be fine. I turn the painting as I am refining so I can use my right-handedness to more delicately paint and erase the more intricate details. Now I move on to what I call the second pass of the burnt umber layer. I have let the first layer dry overnight, and I like to deepen some of my shadows on this second pass and also make corrections. Too much paint on the first layer can make it difficult to get rich, transparent shadows without smearing them. So that's another reason why I do a second layer. I am focusing on the spools, so you can watch how I refine the drawing. I work to clean up the edges and adjust the ovals on the spools. Believe me, I will fight with those ovals all the way through this painting. I'm checking the perspective of that one recalcitrant spool, trying to make sure that the left end is facing forward properly. Perspective. It's a whole other topic that I will try to cover in another video. After this, I clean up the edges again with my filbert brush. It's like erasing, and I do a lot of my refining at this stage by removing paint. This is similar to the way that I use vine charcoal to block in a figure drawing. If I'm doing figure drawing in charcoal, I work with vine charcoal because I can manipulate it in a very similar way and erase it without leaving heavy marks. You might find your own way as you work. There are a lot of different methodologies. This happens to be a method that really works for me. Now let's just focus on these two spools for a bit. The image is a little blurry, but I think you can see that I am cleaning up and refining the edges. The photograph above is washed out in the highlights, but the spool that I see in real life on the far right does have a bottom lip, which I will refine later. I put the background in using a big bright brush. You can see that the paint is a little drippy, so don't let your paint get any wetter than this. I then blend with a dry bright, which I keep wiping on a rag. With the excess terpenoid in the paint gumming up the blending bright, I have to switch to another dry bright to finish the blending. Since this is the second go-round after the first layer has dried, I will have to use a stiff bristle brush on the pear to break up the line a little bit, the line that I want to move. I use some terpenoid, and I'm careful not to scrub too hard. Removing some of the dried paint is possible when you use solvent and not medium in that first layer. Oil paint does not evaporate. It goes through a chemical change called oxidization, which hardens the paint film. Terpenoid is basically breaking down the oil binder, which is what holds the paint together. The mix will dry quickly, but it leaves a weakened film. When the oil binder in the paint is broken down, what is left is mostly pigment and filler particles. It's kind of like how Dawn dish soap works on cooking pots by breaking up the grease. In fact, after I clean my synthetic brushes off with terpenoid, I use Dawn dish detergent to remove leftover paint. Natural bristle brushes, however, should have a milder soap, such as Masters or Murphy's oil soap. So if you need to move a line or whatever, it is possible if you are careful. It may not come off completely, but you just need to take off enough so that the new marks are easy to see. Sometimes, mostly when I remember, I will use a light spray of retouch varnish on the finished burnt umber underpainting to keep that layer from being easy to remove. Because the paint film is delicate at that point, retouch varnish can help protect the surface against scratches or wiping that may happen during later layers. I finally start working the stem of the pear, keeping my marks pretty loose. By the way, this is a lovely plastic pear. Because I was painting in front of the actual still life and not from a photo, I didn't want to buy a real pear and then have it go mushy overnight. The stem on the plastic pear is particularly fake looking, which is why I keep the marks loose. I do a bit more adjusting and refining on the pear and then wipe off the highlight on the stem. I need to turn the painting over so I can paint under the table edge with that big bright brush. Then I blend with a dry bright brush, but I'm going to turn the painting over again and be a little bit more deliberate in my blending. I turn the painting sideways so I can use my T-square to check if my line is horizontal. I have a tendency to draw upward from the left to the right and not realize it until later. I've been told that we all have a dominant eye, and from experience I know mine is the right side. I'm not sure why this affects things, but I tend to pull upwards as I draw across from right to left, and not see the problem until I check it with a T-square. I use turpenoid on a brush and then a rag to clean the edge. And now I'm finished with the underpainting. The next video will be painting the second layer of this painting, which is a gray layer called the grisaille. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please click the like button and subscribe to our channel. See you next time.